Welcome to Longhorn Network Studios. And providing unprecedented coverage of all things Texas, both athletic and academic, today we bring you President Bill Powers' State of the University Address, live from the University of Texas campus. Each year, on or near UT's birthday, the president delivers the address, a status report on current conditions, and a look ahead at the university's priorities and goals. Taking office in 2006, President Powers has focused on strengthening undergraduate education at Texas. Under his leadership, the university has seen a renewed emphasis on curriculum reform, the formation of the School of Undergraduate Studies, and new ways to integrate technology in teaching. What began as a report to the faculty has grown into a momentous message shared among students, staff, alumni, and friends. And this year, with our live broadcast, President Powers' 6th annual speech expands its reach to the Longhorn Nation. The chairman of the UT Faculty Council is Dr. Alan Friedman. Professor Friedman has served on the UT faculty since 1972 and is a specialist in modern British, Irish, and American literature. Now we take you live to the B. Iden Payne Theatre on the campus of the University of Texas and to Dr. Alan Friedman.
Good afternoon. I am Professor of English and the current chair of the Faculty Council here at the University of Texas at Austin. On behalf of the general faculty, I'm delighted and honored to introduce Bill Powers, the 28th president of the University of Texas at Austin, who will deliver his 6th State of the University address today. In politically and financially difficult times, Bill has been a champion of superior education, excellence and productivity in teaching and research, and shared governance. In partnership with all the constituency groups on campus and many of our alumni, business leaders, politicians, and others around the state, Bill has worked tirelessly and effectively to sustain the quality, mission, and reputation of UT, and thereby earn the respect and confidence of all those who value the success of this institution and expect it to evolve in order to sustain and enhance that achievement. As much as I respect Bill as an administrator and higher education leader, I value him equally as a colleague and faculty member. I know that he prizes his title as University Distinguished Teaching Professor at least as much as any other he holds, and that he considers no time better spent than that which he devotes to his freshman seminar, What Makes the World Intelligible. And we were just talking about this backstage. This is what we discussed. The course focuses on two of the most interrogative works in all of Western literature, Oedipus Rex and Hamlet. Oedipus, who begins by asking the detective's question, who murdered King Laius, is ultimately constrained to ask that most profound of all questions, who am I? Hamlet uses the word question more than any other Shakespearean play, and it asks the most questions, most of which receive no answer, or at least none that is unambiguous. Like Oedipus and Hamlet, Bill never claims to know all the answers, but he shares with them a commitment to pursuing truth no matter where it takes him, to ask the right questions, to weigh the evidence, to consult, elicit, and consider alternative perspectives and possibilities, and to make decisions that he can justify, and yet that remain susceptible to further interrogation as circumstances change. It is that openness and transparency, that rare combination of resolve and humility, that I value so highly in him. Today, President Powers will share his views on the current state of the university and his vision of its future, in which so many have a stake. Please join me in welcoming President Bill Powers.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Alan. And Alan, let me thank you for your leadership on the Faculty Council and on our campus. And all of you who are here today, I want to say thank you for joining me. And to UT, our beloved university, I want to say happy birthday. So each year around UT's birthday, I stand before you to discuss the state of our university. I typically present a highlight reel of accomplishments from the past year, coupled with challenges and goals for the year ahead. And I'll do some of that this year as well. We certainly have accomplished many things in the last 12 months. And we do have challenges as we enter a new academic year. But today I also want to step back and take a broader look at who we are, why we're here, why we do things the way we do them. At the risk of being a bit philosophical, I want to examine the soul of our university and universities like it across the nation. It's not news to say that we've been at the center of a contentious debate. We've also been the target of some very pointed criticism. During this debate, we've been supported by throngs of alumni and students, faculty, and legislators. These supporters recognize the need for change at UT, but not change that undermines our constitutional mission to be a university of the first class. To each and every one of you, I say that your support for our university has been the most gratifying part of my 33 years on the 40 acres. I've never seen our campus so unified, and I'm proud as I have ever been to be a Longhorn. In and of itself, a robust debate about the future of UT is a healthy thing. Even when it's uncomfortable, debate is necessary to spark change in how we go about our business. And it's critical if we're to flourish in changing economic times and a changing social environment. But our controversy runs deeper than that. It's often turned into an ugly attack. To paraphrase Lincoln, we're a house divided about our fundamental mission and character. The University of Texas can survive a robust debate among people with very different views about how we operate. But it won't survive as one of the world's great research universities, let alone become the best public university in America, if we remain divided about our fundamental mission and character, about our very soul. And we won't move forward unless we're candid about that. That, I'm sorry to say, is the current state of our university. Our most important challenge is to move beyond this state of affairs. We simply must find ways to work together. Political leaders and educators must come together to find a way forward, a modus vivendi, if you will, that addresses real concerns about productivity and efficiency and cost, but does it in a way that preserves our unique character and reputation as one of the world's great institutions of higher learning. A character and reputation that we've earned through decades of strategic planning and hard work. This outstanding institution was filled up thimbleful by thimbleful. If we're not careful, we can waste it in buckets. Just 3 weeks ago, our chancellor laid out a plan for moving forward together to address the challenges that lie ahead. I congratulate him for that. And I pledge to work with him and others to bring that about. But all of the parties have to participate. This effort can't be unilateral. So I challenge all of us, and I mean all of us, to work to heal our divided house. The first task is to change the tone of the discussion. Our faculty is not the problem. Our faculty is our strength. Not only aren't they the problem, they're a big part of the solutions to the very real challenges that we face. We can't design and implement sustainable change without their hard work and help. They care deeply about their teaching and about the success of our students. It's absolutely critical that we preserve and embrace an atmosphere on our campus that continues to attract and retain the very best faculty in the nation. We live in an extremely competitive national market for faculty talent, and without them, we will not succeed as a great university. We all got off to a bad start a year ago with the now famous Red and Black report at Texas A&M. We see the attack on the research university model in national articles by outsiders who divide our faculty into categories that include dodgers and coasters. We can't control those outsiders, but we can control our own response. The tone of the discussion would take a positive turn if everyone in the UT family, including those who call for more extensive changes, if everyone in the UT faculty community would publicly defend our faculty and our campus from these outside attacks. Let's continue to focus on a constructive discussion of how we can move ahead in challenging and rapidly changing times. And let's listen to and support our faculty in this process. We also need to remember that change is not new at UT. The changes we're now instituting were set in motion by a systematic, multi-year effort of the Commission of 125 when it submitted its report some 7 years ago. I emphasized this in last year's State of the University address and again last May in my address to that commission. We've transformed our undergraduate curriculum, including instituting our freshman signature courses that bring experienced faculty to our undergraduates in small groups the moment they arrive on campus. As most of you know, and as Alan mentioned, I teach one of these, and it is a wonderful experience for me. We also engage new students through our freshman research initiative. And we've instituted what we call flag requirements that focus on skills such as writing and critical thinking, not just on facts and subject matter. In addition to reforming our curriculum, we've reorganized several administrative units, including information technology services, development, public affairs, and parts of student affairs. We've saved millions of dollars and eliminated several vice president positions. That's a lot of change. We've utterly transformed our budgeting process to better match funding allocations with strategic decisions, allowing us to have greater impact with fewer dollars. And we've cut our budget by $46 million a year, or 16.5% of our annual general revenue. We've developed new and improved business management systems, such as our faculty information system, to better track progress and performance of departments and programs. And we've established new shared purchasing programs that have saved millions of dollars. We've instituted flat rate tuition and other programs that have steadily improved our graduation rates. And we're addressing these issues at the statewide and national level. We've convened 2 consortia, one among a cross-section of Texas universities and community colleges, and a second among national research universities. 2 consortia to jointly take a leadership role in higher education productivity, especially in the area of using technology for online and blended courses. And in this effort, we've also partnered with Carnegie Mellon University and with Harvard. We're working on college readiness projects in 10 Texas school districts. Almost 3 years ago, I hired Vice Provost Harrison Keller to lead education reform projects like these. This position was almost unique among American universities. And I'm thankful to him and Vice Provost Gretchen Ritter for making so much progress, and to our faculty for being so engaged. As a reflection of their efforts I was introduced as a pioneer in the field of productivity and change just last month at a conference of the Lumina Foundation, a leader in higher education productivity reform and a wonderful financial and planning partner in our efforts. Now, these examples aren't exhaustive, but even these belie the notion that we sometimes hear that we have our head in the sand or we have our feet dug in against change. More needs to be done, but it's critical that we be given the space to continue these efforts so that we can work not just for change, but for sustainable change. We can't take our shoulder from the wheel, but it's also important to remember that we aren't broken in the way some of our critics claim. By almost any measure, we're already among the most efficient and productive universities in America. Our administrative costs as a percentage of our budget are half the state average. If you take our reputational rankings, a measure of what other people think of our educational and research effectiveness, and divide them by our level of tuition and state funding, we're second in the country among public universities in productivity. The simple fact that state tax general revenue provides only 13% of our total budget, which we then leverage with our ability to attract outside money. That's an indication that the citizens of Texas are getting a very good deal. And the fact that we have 31,000 applicants for 7,200 freshman slots shows that students and their families also think that we're a good value. Indeed, just this last August, Smart Money magazine named UT Austin the second best value in the United States. While we confront real challenges that lie ahead, we also need to remember that every day, the real work of transforming lives takes place on this campus. It takes place in the classrooms, in the laboratories, and in the libraries. It takes place in student organizations and in faculty office hours. We've certainly had a long, hot, dry, controversial, and frankly disheartening summer. Then a few weeks ago, our students began reporting for orientation, gone to Texas, and the first day of class. I met with my group of freshmen at our reading roundup, and then with my freshman seminar. I saw faculty talking about their new classes and their ongoing research. We returned to the other day-to-day business of our great university. And when I experienced all of that, my heart soared. I thought, this is what it is all about. For all of our challenges, what starts here really does change the world. As we start this new academic year, we can't be diverted from the task of transforming these young lives. And even in these difficult times, we need to take note of how much we've accomplished this last year. We opened the long-anticipated Student Activity Center on the East Mall. We opened the much-needed Norman Hackerman building to replace the old and dysfunctional Experimental Science building. We broke ground on the Bill and Melinda Gates Computer Science Complex, which includes the Susan and Michael Dell Computer Science Hall. And we began construction on a much-needed new liberal arts building, which will also provide a modern new home for our ROTC programs. And we made good progress on funding for a new engineering building. We raised $374 million from donors in very difficult economic times, making this our second biggest year ever, topped only by $383 million in 2008. All of this is up from $150 million as recently as 2005. I want to thank all of our alumni and friends who have so steadfastly supported us in this critical time. At $1.66 billion, we're now more than halfway to our $3 billion goal. Despite being slightly behind schedule on this 8-year project, I think our progress is quite spectacular in the middle of a very difficult economic recession. Research grants are very tight now, given the stress on the federal budget and our economy in general. So we were off slightly in research income this year, but we still raised nearly $528 million this past year, and we have some very exciting and very large projects in the works. And our income from commercialization, commercializing scientific and technological patents and copyrights, was more than $25 million, up 80% from 2009-2010. This puts us in a very elite group of American universities. And of course, we've been busy on creating the Longhorn Network, a first-of-its-kind partnership with ESPN that will provide UT with $300 million over the next 20 years. This partnership's already been responsible for funding a faculty chair in art history, and it will soon be funding additional chairs in physics, philosophy, communication, mathematics, and African and diaspora studies, with more to come each year in the future. Our partners are working around the clock to gain the widest possible distribution of this important new communication platform to our Longhorn Nation, and everyone in the UT faculty can help this effort by contacting their providers and talking about and requesting the network. But while we had a good year and we made a lot of progress, the fact that remains that we're still in the process of changing our business and educational model. Given changes in funding sources, the current model, though already changed significantly, simply is not sustainable. So what is it that we need to change? First, we do need to control the cost of a UT education for students and for their families. 20 years ago, our cost was a small fraction of today's rates. But now we are still just below the national average for public universities and well below the average of our peer group. Unlike in California and in other states, we didn't respond to the economic downturn and budget shortfalls with massive tuition increases. For Texans, who comprise 92% of our undergraduates, tuition is less than $10,000 a year. For a quarter of our freshmen, after scholarships and grants, it's less than $2,500 a year. That's less than $10,000 for 4 years. Thank you. Thank you. Meanwhile, state support per student has fallen 41% in constant dollars since 1985, and now sits at its lowest point since 1964. Including general revenue, tuition, and AUF funds, we're still thousands of dollars behind our peers in per-student funding. So we have worked hard to control costs in a very difficult funding environment. But even this model isn't sustainable. We still have to change. We all agree with that. But the key is we need to change in a focused and strategic way. We can't just engage in the process of change in an unorganized and unfocused manner. We have to ask, where does change give us the biggest savings? What are the levers that will move the needle the most? And in a way that will sustain the high quality of our teaching and our research. We started with business practices and with trimming around the edges. But any realistic assessment of our costs has to take into account the fact that wages and benefits constitute 62% of our academic budget. And as it should be, teaching our undergraduates is the biggest part. So our biggest lever for becoming more productive and containing costs has to concentrate on undergraduate teaching. That's where the major focus has been, it's where it is now, and it's where it needs to be in the future. The challenge is to change in a way that enhances the quality of the undergraduate experience, not detracts from it. Every productivity gain in history has come from redesigned processes and better capital equipment, not from simplistic calls for making the labor force work longer hours or work faster. Three crop rotation, the plow harness for horses, and robotics and other technology in factories. These are the ways to increase productivity. So history and experience tell us that redesigning process and making capital investments should be our focus, not making ideological claims about our faculties not working hard enough. Our faculty work hard. They carry an average of 33% more teaching load credits than the UT system requires. And the old saw that senior faculty can't be bothered teaching undergraduates simply is not true. Within the 13 colleges that teach undergraduates on our campus, 86% of our tenured and tenure-track faculty teach undergraduate courses. Papers and articles attacking our faculty are replete with errors. In particular, they average full-time administrators with faculty numbers without compensating for the administrative duties. They averaged in graduate students along with tenured and tenure-track professors. They conflated the job descriptions of assistant, associate, and full professors. And they've ignored any research that wasn't externally funded. These papers and articles painted a very misleading picture of who we are and what we do on a daily basis. Now, no doubt, in an institution of this size, we can find a few faculty members who might be teaching more. But at UT, this is the rare exception and not the rule. The notion that one of the leading public universities in the country has large numbers of faculty, or let alone the majority, that are phoning it in is simply absurd. We have a very productive faculty, and one of which I am extremely proud. And as I said before, we live in a very competitive market for top faculty talent. We need to make teaching at UT more attractive, not less so. Our system and our Board of Regents need to start defending our faculty from these attacks. But we can do a lot to increase our productivity. In fact, the most single effective lever for increasing productivity is improving our four-year graduation rates. In May, I challenged our campus to achieve a 70% four-year graduation rate. And I formed a task force chaired by liberal arts dean Randy Deal to work on ways to achieve that goal. Today, I challenge us to achieve this goal in 5 years. It'll take a combination of designing better pathways through the university, incentivizing students to make the right choices, and holding students to degree plans that lead to timely graduation. At a minimum, increasing our four-year graduation rates by 20% would cut about 2,000 people semesters on our campus. This represents a huge savings. A savings for students, for their families, and for UT. More students would graduate in a timely manner. If that were the case, more students could enter through the front door, thereby increasing access. Critically, Critically, improving graduation rates would not diminish the quality of a UT education and a UT degree. But it is a huge project. We can't get it done unless we are given the space to focus on it. The second most effective lever is redesigning courses and sequences of courses. And where appropriate, we should use technology and new knowledge from cognitive science about student learning and student success. We'll be investing about $50 million in these efforts over the next 5 years. Our coalition of other national research universities can make this effort even more effective as we leverage our efforts to design courses, to design curricula, to design pathways, all for the future. If just 20 national research universities invested this $50 million over the next 5 years, our collective efforts would have a $1 billion impact. America's leading universities should be taking the lead on this issue, and I challenge all of us to make this commitment. These two areas, graduation rates and course and curriculum transformation, these two areas are in line with the action plan that the Chancellor laid out in August. They show us where we can have the biggest impact on controlling cost and increasing access. And critically, as I've said before, but will repeat again, they don't diminish the quality of a UT education or our ability to attract and retain the best faculty. They won't be easy, and they'll require our concentrated effort. But like most everything in life, very little gets done by spreading ourselves too thin. If we try to change everything, or if we are forced to try to change everything, we're likely to change nothing. The Chancellor emphasized the flexibility of his plan, and he recognized that different campuses in our system have different needs. On our campus, our course redesign project and our attention to graduation rates will by far give us the best results. We're organized around them with staffing and resources, strategic partnerships, and these are where we can move the needle the most. We simply need to be given the space to get them done. If we aren't, if we're pulled hither and yon from one project to another, we won't be able to accomplish our mission. Put bluntly, tilting at the windmills of supposed faculty who don't work hard or who don't care about our undergraduates for all the rhetoric about Dodgers and coasters. That'll simply divert us from our real tasks at hand. And it will severely damage our ability to attract and retain the best talent. And on top of that, giving us this space will do more than anything else to help heal our divided house. As we forge ahead with these needed change, there are other exciting possibilities on the horizon. The Chancellor also emphasized health and medical education in Texas, and he made reference to both South Texas and Austin as particular areas of focus. This has already been an area of focus on our campus and has been for at least the last 5 years. Austin's the largest city in the United States without a major medical school. And UT Austin is one of only a handful of AAU universities without a medical school, Berkeley and MIT being the other notable exceptions. Not only is the need in Central Texas great, but the scientific basis of modern medicine requires combining great basic scientific research with translational research and with clinical care. We already have great biomedical teaching and research in our schools of nursing and pharmacy, in our departments of biomedical engineering, kinesiology, and human ecology, in our basic science programs such as chemistry and biochemistry, and in interdisciplinary programs such as the Texas Institute for Drug and Diagnostic Development, the Institute for Computational Engineering and Science, the Texas Advanced Computing Center, and the Institute for Cellular and Molecular Biology, just to name a few. Our programs in social work, law, business, and economics are also working on healthcare issues. By creating the Dell Pediatric Research Institute, we've grown in this critical area of translational research that takes ideas from the lab to the bedside. The Seton Healthcare family and UT Southwestern Medical School have increased the number of residencies and clinical programs in Austin. We also need to work closely with others in the healthcare community in Austin, including St. David's. Brick by brick, we've made great progress in the last 5 years. And we do need to continue to push forward to bring all this together in a medical school. And we can achieve that goal, and we can do it in a way that avoids the fear that it'll undermine our other academic programs, which we have to be very careful about, and especially those in the humanities and social sciences. Now, today is not the time to outline details. Much work has already been done, and much remains to be done. Senator Kirk Watson, who's been a leader in this effort, will be outlining a collaborative plan in the next week. And as we reach an important point in a roughly decade-long effort, I want to express my gratitude and my support for Senator Watson's efforts. So we've had successes over the last year, and we have plans to face our challenges in the present and in the future. But the current climate also requires that we step back and assess and to affirm who we are and the role we play as one of the world's great teaching and research universities. Heaven knows that we need change, but it would profit us not to give up our soul. Put more in the vernacular, we have to be very careful that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So if you'll indulge me, I want to talk for a minute about Heraclitus and Plato and Parmenides and Job. Plato recognized that the world consists of change and continuity. Before Plato, Heraclitus had suggested it was all change, saying famously that you can't step in the same stream twice. After all, they aren't the same water molecules when you step in the second time. But common sense tells us, in some sense, it is the same stream. That the stream does persist over time. When Parmenides saw the problem, he therefore thought that change must simply be an illusion, not reflecting a true and deeper reality. And so Zeno said in his famous paradox that Achilles' spear would never really reach its target. Plato was much more pragmatic. Just look around. We experience change and continuity every day. We've got to embrace them both. We can't explain either one of them away. So he set out to account for a world that had both change and continuity. Details change, essential characteristics, or the forms, don't. We see this in everyday life. I'm a different person than I was at 50, or 25, or 10. But in my soul, Aren't I still the same? A jazz musician can do extraordinary riffs on My Melancholy Baby. But when does it cease to be My Melancholy Baby at all? And I could go on with everyday examples. Now, I'm not here to defend Plato's particular solution to this philosophical question. Indeed, he seems to have changed his own mind later in his life. And other philosophers have addressed this problem for over 2 millennia. But I use Plato to pose the critical question that we face as a university. How do we change without losing what is essential to our being a great research university, both for our students and for society? That is what this current controversy is all about. You know, a university is an odd institution. Why should we take 18-year-olds, by nearly all measures ready to go out and start contributing to our society, and instead send them outside of the workforce in a circuitous, multi-year journey? The answer is that 20 years from now, they'll have a richer life for it, productively, financially, intellectually, and even spiritually. If enough of them do this, society itself will have a richer collective life. That's the bet we're making. It's the premise under which we and all great universities labor. In the same way, why would we take some of our best intellects at the age of 40 and tell them to pursue research on esoteric topics of their choosing? Again, the answer is that by doing this, they'll increase our collective understanding of our world and our place in it as human beings. This increased understanding establishes a higher platform from which the next generation goes forward. History and experience have clearly shown us that societies with a richer understanding of the world, that is, of science, and a richer understanding of the human condition, that is, of the humanities, are more productive and more civilized in the long run. Put bluntly, great universities are based on deferred gratification. I was born almost to the day, 9 months after the end of World War II. I'm the prototypical baby boomer. So I can tattle on my own generation. We don't have much use for delayed gratification. We want gratification, and we want it yesterday. And now we're at the height of our societal power. We're in charge. And I believe this predisposition against delayed gratification has much to do with the debate over higher education in our country. If the point of a university is mainly to train employees, then scaling it up to industrial dimensions makes all the sense in the world. Huge classes, maximum standardization of curriculum, cheaper labor, cheaper mass-produced degrees. But this is not the point of a university, and especially it is not the point of the University of Texas. Our educational mission, especially for our undergraduates, is to cultivate the mind. That's embedded in our university's very motto. A cultivated mind is the guardian genius of democracy. Helping students think critically and in complex ways. Helping them understand the scientific revolution. Helping them understand history and our cultural heritage. Helping them continue to learn, organize their own independent thinking, and express their thoughts effectively and articulately. Learning in a research environment is an essential part of cultivating the mind. This is where delayed gratification comes in. The fruits of this type of education are harvested when these students take leadership roles years after graduation to support our democratic way of life. And when they spawn further innovation in business, science, technology, and the arts. Even the satisfaction that one's life was well and richly lived is an output of an education that cultivates the mind. Not so long ago, I was the dean of a professional school. So I understand the value of our students acquiring practical skills and credentials for a career. Our course transformation project is based on our belief that redesigned courses and curricula, including technology-based learning, can and needs to play an important role in that, and even in acquiring the traits of a cultivated mind. The point is that in all of these changes, we need to use as a beacon the essence of an education that does richly cultivate our students' minds. Delayed gratification also affects our interrelated mission of research. Administrators don't try to direct or censor our faculty's research. Instead, we make careful hires and then put our trust in a process that allows our faculty to pursue knowledge. We know from long experience that in the aggregate, unfettered research yields the greatest long-term return. If we hire the best and tell them advanced knowledge, over time, we'll get a better result than if we try to direct that research from the top down. Of course, we do sponsor particular research projects with targeted investments, and we do hold our faculty's feet to the fire to produce high-quality, peer-reviewed scholarship. But at the end of the day, we have to stand for knowledge that flows from human curiosity. History tells us that societies that do this do turn out better in the long run. There are certain human activities that have wonderful effects, but not unless you pursue them for their own sake and not for the sake of those effects. Athletes, coaches, and sports psychologists know that your best performance comes when you focus on the activity and not on the outcome. When you square up to the plate and put a good swing on the ball, but don't fret over the result. Prayer. Prayer can have wonderful psychological benefits. It calms and focuses the mind. But if you're doing it to calm and focus your mind, you're not really praying. And you won't get the result. Love. Falling in love or being in love has wonderful effects on our emotions and on our mental health. But if you set out to find a partner so that you'll have these effects, you'll never really fall in love. University research may not be as redemptive as prayer or as exhilarating as falling in love. But in the aggregate, it follows a very similar pattern. You get better results if you hire quality people and then trust the process by letting the researchers follow their own curiosity. And you get better professors that way. Throughout history, there have been those who have stood up for the cause of knowledge for its own sake, and were better off for it. When Irish monks spent 100 years copying every book they could get their hands on so that they might save knowledge from barbarians sweeping across Europe, they were putting their faith in the intrinsic value of knowledge. And in time, that knowledge redeemed the West from barbarism and rekindled civilization across the world. They didn't concern themselves with developing a better catapult or a better crossbow. They just focused on knowledge. Even manuscripts that were read by only a handful of scholars formed a new foundation on which future generations could build. And then build again. And then build yet again. And over time, look what it produced to make the world a better place. Was translating some obscure book from classical Greece just frivolous? That's what research does. It's a collective enterprise. Each article may be but a drop of water. But together and over time, they create a river that carries us all to a better place. Before graduating from UT in May, Plan 2 biology major Aaron Suh worked in a pediatric research and immunology lab looking for ways to treat children with autoimmune disorders. During the summer following his freshman year, he worked at UT MD Anderson Cancer Center, searching for a molecule that can inhibit the growth of a protein associated with brain cancer. Now he's gone on to the University of Washington to pursue an MD, PhD. The kind of experience Aaron received as an undergraduate at UT is what a research university is all about. More Aarons mean more cures, but you only get more Aarons when you maintain robust research universities where students have strong and accomplished mentors and teachers at the cutting edge of their own field. Foundational education and foundational research always surprise us in ways we couldn't have predicted or directed. The student who's never heard of venture capital has an IPO 10 years later. Another student who has no background in politics becomes a senator. A chemist who has no interest in medicine discovers molecular properties that lead to an elusive cure. Those two are the output of a university whose soul strives to cultivate the human mind. Today, as in every generation, we stand at a crossroads. Our highest task is educating young people to do more than just pull levers. We must train them in the art of critical thinking and imbue them with a love of learning. And this is anything but a trivial matter. Earlier this year, Newsweek polled 1,000 Americans. 29% couldn't name the vice president. I'll let that sink in for a moment. 73% couldn't correctly say why we fought the Cold War. 44%, close to half, were unable to define the Bill of Rights. And 6% couldn't even circle Independence Day on the calendar. The problem isn't so much that 3 in 10 Americans don't know who the vice president is. The bigger problem is that 3 in 10 don't seem to care. That's the difference between simply imparting knowledge and cultivating the mind. A university education is predicated on the notion that after the experience, citizens would not only know more, but care more, and make the journey from knowing to caring to acting. When we look at our popular landscape, we're forced to wonder how much ignorance any democracy can withstand. If our civil society is to endure, we in higher education have to hold up the lantern toward a finer way of life. If universities stand for anything, it should be the pursuit of critical thinking. There should be a countervailing force against the sort of willful ignorance and anti-intellectualism, indeed Philistinism, we see manifested in large and small ways across our culture. Thank you. To stand for the edifying over the vacuous, the deep over the shallow, the refined over the coarse. Yes, to return to Heraclitus, the stream changes. But let's not forget what makes it a stream and what does actually persist over time. Consider a lesson from the book of Job. Job evokes several things: patience in suffering and faith. But it also addresses another theme I'd like to consider today: the struggle in human history between ideology and experience. When Job's so-called friends, Eliphaz and Bildad and Zophar, when they find him covered in boils and sitting in ashes, they insist that he must have sinned against God to be in such a state. That, after all, was the religious dogma of his day, the dogma of the Deuteronomist. Job's friends were simply parroting this dogma. But Job knew better. He knew not from ideology, but from his own experience that he was a righteous man. So he knew that his friends, and more importantly, their dogma, were wrong. His self-knowledge, drawn from his experience, crashed headlong into the prevailing ideology. And we readers know that he's right, because we know the real reason for Job's problems is not his sinning, but instead God's bet with Hasatan. In the end, it is the ideology that is proven wrong. And Job's faith, based on his experience, is rewarded. Our founding fathers took a dim view of simplistic ideological solutions. When they dispersed power between federal, state, and local authorities, and among the three branches of government with their checks and balances, it was a sublime expression of putting faith in a process and rejecting a top-down self-assuredness that experienced in a monarchy. The University of Texas at Austin is an institution of enormous value to this world. Like a rainforest, its rich diversity of creatures and microenvironments is as delicately balanced as it is productive. If we understand the power of its synergies and we respect its processes, it can yield cures for society we have yet to even dream of. From the beginning of my presidency, I've stated my belief that the University of Texas at Austin can and should be the best public university in America. After nearly 6 years of service in this office, I'm more convinced than ever that it's within our reach. We can get there by following three ideas, stated in just 9 words. Hire the best. Honor the mission. Then measure the results. Hiring the best means creating and maintaining an environment in which our faculty are not presumed guilty until proven innocent, but instead are empowered to fulfill their life's calling and to spread their contagious enthusiasm to our students. Honoring the mission means staying true to the idea, the form, if you will, of a research university, respecting its intellectual ecosystems that blend teaching and research at every level, and understanding the untold blessings it has bestowed on society. And measuring the results means holding ourselves accountable for the success of this institution, whether in access, graduation rates, alumni success, rankings, but most of all, the quality of the education, we are delivering. If we hire the best and honor the mission, and then measure the results, we can, and I believe we will, realize the goal of becoming not just a university of the first class, but America's top research university. And I want to thank all of you for the part you are playing in this goal. And I leave you with a question. Doesn't Texas deserve the best? Thank you.